Hello, my name is John Abbott. I'm the producer of this documentary that you're about to see. This video was produced in early 2022. At this time, Bill Manlove does reside near the center of Doylestown Borough, and he is a living, legendary Division III college football coach. I was only introduced to him a few years ago by one of my friends who played for him at Widener University over 30 years ago. My friend knew I was a co-writer of a book highlighting another Division III football coaching legend. His name was Paul the Fox Horniman, and he coached at Heidelberg University located in Northwest Ohio. And so he inspired me, my friend inspired me to investigate a way to capture Manlove's great coaching career. Like all my other not-for-profit endeavors, I decided the best way to do this is through a digital video recording of Manlove, sharing in his own words what contributed to his success, as well as capturing the myriad of accolades shared by former players and coaches. We searched for actual vintage 16mm game films and came up with a classic semifinal playoff game against Wittenberg University. It is amazing that Manlove is one of the few coaches with over 200 victories and has been inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. And he began his college coaching career in 1969, and to this day he is still coaching. This video captures his down-to-earth personality and strategic thinking that earned him the right to be honored as a living coaching legend.
That's a third down stop for the Aggies, and the Monarchs are going to have to punt. Boy, Duke Greco really has the defense on point today, and part of the reason for that is he's got a great coaching staff. One of the names you may not know is Bill Manlove. He's semi-retired now, but he is a Division III coaching legend. The Aggies are looking for their fourth consecutive Middle Atlantic Conference title. Coach Manlove won 10 at Widener. He's Widener's all-time leader for coaching victories, and he has 2 national championships. He coached a number of All-Americans, is in the College Football Hall of Fame, and is a great gentleman. Bill Manlove is a legendary head coach.
Let's go! Let's go!
Knew I wanted to be a head coach, and I thought I'd probably have to go back to high school to get one, but fortunately the Drexel job opened and I applied for that, had an interview with the AD, and then was back for a second interview with a vice president. After I talked to the vice president, I didn't have a good feeling that Drexel was ready to do something, and I walked out of there kind of with, well, I'm not going to take this job if they offer it to me. And I decided that I knew PMC, which is now Widener, was open. And I decided I'll drive down, see what I can find out. I knew one of the coaches here, George Burke, who was one of my coaches eventually, and great guy, and he's now deceased, unfortunately. But anyway, I came in and met them, and they took me over to meet the athletic director, and the athletic director immediately gave me some information, and I kind of walked out after meeting him, and the next thing I know, I got an invite from him to come for the interview, and the rest is history.
I stopped one time at a bar to go see a buddy of mine who was a bartender. He was the captain of the Maryland football team, and he was a nose guard. So I sit down, and he comes down and, to give me a beer, and he says to me, Waddy, I don't know, Division III football? You got to be kidding me. And I said, well, his nickname was Lurch, and it was appropriate. I said, Lurch, yeah, you're right. I said, how many NFL All-Stars, All-Pros were in your huddle? And he turned and looked at me and walked away. So I never got my beer either. So I just wanted to tell you a couple of things that come to my mind. I remember the time we went down to the University of Delaware to scrimmage them. And I remember the bus couldn't hold all the players that we had, and a couple of us had to drive down to Delaware. So on the way back, we never thought about it, but it was a toll road. We didn't have any money. We were in our football uniforms. And a state cop pulled us over for running the toll. And then he came and he looked and he saw that none of us had any money, so he let us go. But I really enjoyed playing for you, and I learned a lot from you. So congratulations, and I hope to see you soon.
Who was in the backfield when you played in the early 70s?
Oh, well, it was Billy Whiteshoes. And in 1971 season, it was Wheels Weaver and Billy Whiteshoes. So to be in the third spot, I'm looking at it. I remember the first practice. We're standing in line, that long line that, it's always the first week of practice. And I'm looking at these two, and I'm saying, well, I better learn how to block. I better work on my blocking skills, because no one's going to move those two guys out. I remember the first game that I played with Billy. He scored a touchdown, did his dance, spiked the ball, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I gotta keep this guy's back." I never saw anything like it. I do remember, like, the first practice that he actually had a break at halfway through the practice, and we had Gatorade and we had chocolate chip cookies, and I thought, like, wow, this is different what I'm used to. I'm used to, like, coaches that didn't even want to give you a water. They thought that if you wanted water, you're a wuss. But Coach Manlove was right. I mean, that's re-energized us for the second half of practice, and he was different from what I was used to as far as a coach, and I certainly did appreciate it.
I always felt the game, when I first learned it, was basically a defensive type of game. So I felt special teams were the most important thing, because you could gain or lose so much yardage on special teams. Then, to me, the game was a defensive game, and then offense. So I always approached it special teams, defense, and offense. My offensive thinking, as was everything else I did, was to be a little different than everybody else. Rationale being, the week we played them, they'd have to make adjustments to play against us, whereas we would just do our regular thing. But offensively, I always wanted to be able to strike several places at one time without the defense knowing which it was going to be. And so originally I ran the belly, what we called the inside belly series, give to one back, give to the second back. And then later on, as I finally got to the college area coaching, we ended up with what I call the belly option offense. And it was basically where we could hit any point along the line, either side, at any one particular time, and you'd have to be determined which it was going to be. So from there, we always got a lot of players at Widener that were very fast, so I felt we ought to emphasize speed, which we did, which is how we got to the 4-point stance. Our linemen were in a 4-point stance, our backs were in a 4-point stance. People would say, well, what do you want your backs in a 4-point stance for? I said, well, when track coaches start getting their guys out of a 4-point stance, then we'll get out of one, because that's the fastest way to get off. When we went to the option offense, I wanted to have a quick hitter, which we called speed, which is a straight ahead for the back. Then we wanted to be able to run off tackle, which we call our dream play. And then, of course, the ideal of the option is the pitch or keep outside, and we just called that option. Or later we called it fly. And the fourth play was what we referred to as a scissors, we called it, which was a slot back coming back against the flow with a scissors. And we picked that up from Delaware. A lot of our thinking was where Delaware was, but just we did it a little bit differently. They're the 4 plays, and everybody said, well, that's only 4 plays, but we could run them left or right, and we could counter them, each of those, with counter steps. So technically, those 4 plays could be like 16 plays if you looked at it in that regard. And we felt that was all the running game we needed. Oh yeah, we had a quarterback sneak and things like that, but they weren't really plays in our mind. It's just something you had to do in a situation. So that was our running game. We did throw the ball, not a whole lot, but we scored a lot with the passing game because our passing game was basically big play or make a 3rd down conversion sort of thing. That was our passing game. One alum said to our offensive line coach, he said, Neil, I don't understand. He said, I could stand over there and I can, up in the stands, I can call every play. He said, yeah, try and play linebacker. Our speed, and we had great speed, and our backs were only like 3.5 yards deep. So realistically, when they got the ball, if you weren't there, there was a hole. Now our linemen just came out and hit people. That's all they had to do was hit. They may come out and make their initial hit. Remember, in those days, you couldn't use your hands either. So you come out and make the hit, and the back would hit in there as fast as they were making the hit. So if the defender didn't get his arm off, the back was by. And if he got by, it was Katie bar the door because they could just run to the end zone. They were that fast. So everybody tried to take that play away, and everybody else wanted to take the pitch away. So realistically, if they were doing both of those, what we would do, we reverse pivoted in those days. Come out, just fake one, hit our split end going down the side. The other thing we would do is hit our slot back. If this strong safety tried to come up, we just released our slot back and throw a little dinker to him, which would be a 10 or 15 yard gain. So there was always something we could do to counter whatever they wanted to do. Well, my approach was there are 3 best players we needed to have for offense. Usually it was a running back, maybe secondly another running back, and possibly a wide receiver. Somebody said, how about the quarterback? Well, the quarterback was important to us, but he did not have to be one of the great players on our team, because I always felt that if your quarterback had to be a great player, you'd probably be in trouble if you didn't have the best one around. Our quarterbacks had to be good. They had to do what we wanted them to do and be able to throw the long ball. If they could do that, they were great quarterbacks. And some were great, believe me, but a lot of quarterbacks were just good quarterbacks. Okay, so we picked those 3 players on offense. Then after that, every other player was up for grabs for the defense. So the defense got first dibs. So the next 11 best players that they wanted went on defense. We ran the same kickoff for 20-some years. Never really changed it. We'd move from the hash to the middle depending on the situation, but same kickoff. And the reason we ran the same one, we always had 2 guys line up behind everybody else, and they could run in any hole they needed to get down there. And the rationale was that you couldn't set up who was going to block who. The defensive team would have to make a lot of time that week deciding how they were going to block us on the kickoff. And it was important. Also on special teams, everybody could play special teams. If a player complained during a game, Coach, I need a rest, can I not go down on special teams? I know you take off on offense or you take off on defense. Of course, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to play on that side of the ball. Everybody played special teams. One year our backup long snapper was our quarterback. One year we had everybody was available to the special teams. We just did not want to not have our best people on special teams. Every day after practice in camp, and my coaches used to get mad at me for this, but we would sit down and review personnel. I thought it was so important. Who do you have that's not one of your regulars that can help somebody else? That was always my thinking. Let's not stockpile where offensive line coach has 6 guards that are all good. Maybe 2 of them could play somewhere else and help us right away. So that was the thinking. No stockpiling of players. Any player you had besides your starters was up for grabs. One of the greatest players we had, Tom Deary, 3-time All-American, Hall of Famer, College Football Hall of Fame, pro, just a great athlete. He came in and we thought he was going to be a slot back for us. He was tall, skinny at the time, and we thought he would make an excellent slot back because he could run pretty well. About the third or fourth day of practice, somebody said, we have a real problem at safety. Somebody said, well, how about him? I said, well, how about him? You can take a look at him. If you like what you see with him, certainly take a look. So they took him over. That's the last time we ever saw him on the offensive side. He was over on the defense from then on because he was a great player. Well, I think depends on the position. Quickness, if you don't have that, it's not going to be very effective even with your speed. If you're a slow starter, you're not going to get to the line of scrimmage. So we always wanted quickness first, but most guys who are quick are usually pretty fast too, we found. Now there's exceptions. Some guys are very quick and not very, very fast. I had a very good running back who hit the hole fast, but wasn't going to break away for long touchdowns. Very honestly, my pep talk was always during the week. I always felt that if you needed a pep talk on Saturday, there was something wrong with you. You should be anxious to play. You only play once a week in football. It's not like baseball where you play every day or every several days in college. But you're only going to play once a week. So if you're not ready on game day, you're not on my team. I don't think I want you around. You should be so hungry by game day, you can't wait to get out there. Yeah, I guess the worst defeat we ever had, and I go back and say it was coaching on my part, that we weren't smart enough to understand. We had a great football team in 1980, probably the best team talent-wise I ever had. We went through our schedule unscathed. It wasn't even a close game. We did not have a close game. We got in the first round of the playoffs, bang, right through, no trouble. Second round, we're going to play Dayton. And I thought that right then we had the best Division III team I had ever seen. Now, I hadn't seen all of them because it's Division III is all over the country, but I thought we were as good as any team I had ever seen. When I got the film of Dayton that weekend, I could have cried. I could not believe anybody could be that good. And we had an added problem to the situation. Our quarterback, Bobby Cole, ended up in the hospital with wisdom teeth problems, and we didn't have him all week to practice. He came back on Friday, and he was about 15 pounds lighter, and he was skinny to start with. And so we go into Saturday's game, and I'm saying, gee whiz, I don't know if we have a chance. They're so good. Believe it or not, I don't know how. We're ahead 24-0 at halftime. And I thought, holy mackerel, how did this happen? We go in at halftime. Unfortunately, our loudspeaker comes out and says, Stag Bowl tickets will go on sale immediately after the game. And I'm saying, oh, that's the worst thing in the world they could say. We get into the locker room, and I'm trying to tell our guys that, hey, these guys are very good. And all they're thinking was, well, we're going to score one more touchdown, and you're going to take us out, because that's basically what we did. We always had the rule, 4 touchdowns lead is not enough, 5 is too many. And my thinking always was, we didn't need to run it up on anybody. If we had a 5 touchdown lead, it was time to get guys ready for next year. And we'd get the subs in the game. But I think our players felt that way. And we go out in the second half, and all of a sudden, at the end of the third quarter, it's 24-14. We're still in the game. Fourth quarter, we hold them to 1. It's 24-21, and we're late in the game. And here, special teams is our strength. In the last series, all we have to do is get the punt off and stop them. We get the punt block, they score, and we lose 28-24. It was a terrible day for our players, because they just felt wind knocked right out of them.
My name's Lou Irving. I played in the 81 Stag Bowl for Widener. I had the pleasure of being coached by Bill Manlove. Okay, and one of my biggest memories of him is actually when I first came into college. And he brought us all into, it was the big auditorium, and I'm not sure of the name of the hall, but we were all in there, and we had some of the greatest, I thought, some of the greatest players from Delaware County that had come into Widener that year, so everybody thought they were superstars and all that kind of stuff. And I guess Coach felt, you know, he needed to come in and kind of quell that to a certain extent. And I remember he walked in and he walks in with this big pail of water. So we're like, what's he got that for? So he walks in, he puts it down, and he says, gentlemen, I want you to know this team is similar to this pail of water, okay? And he sticks his hand down there, and he pulls it back up, and he goes to the side, it drips off, and he says, look in the pail now. Do you see any difference? He says, no. He says, that's what I want to explain to you. The drips are like players. One player doesn't make the team. The whole pail makes the team. And I thought that was so great, such a great statement. You know, it told so much that for me, it made so much sense that if we all didn't work together, we weren't going to be a team. And I thought that was one of his greatest moments, for me anyway, to hear him say something like that.
Well, this is the stadium, Memorial Stadium, as it was basically called. We called a lot of it the Memorial Swamp because we knew where it was, where the wet spots were here. But it was a great home field advantage for us, at least. We felt we won an awful lot of games here. I forget, I can give you the figures, but I don't know them right now of how well we did here. But site of 3 big games, I can remember that. The 2 of the playoff games, which propelled us into the national championship game, and one that would have propelled us into the national championship game that we lost here to Dayton. And that was one of the hardest losses I guess we ever had here. We were up 24-0 and end up losing, so that's a bad sign. But one famous game here, I guess, was the '77 game when we played Albany State, now a Division I AA school, but nevertheless, we're in a tight game here in terrible weather, rain, snow, cold. It was just a miserable day, basically, but at halftime we were concerned because we would be coming out of this, what we called where the swampy end was, down there by the student dorm, and we knew they'd be kicking off and putting us in a hole there, and we wanted to get out of there, so we spent halftime trying to do what we were going to do with our kickoff return, and we were fortunate we got it out of there. We exchanged punts a couple times, then we had a punt return by Stevie Warrington, returned it for a touchdown, and that put us up. And the wind changed, of course, or didn't change, the quarter changed, and we changed ends, and we had this end going that way then, and we put it away in the 4th quarter. So it was a big win here for us. And in '81, there was another big win here. We were playing Montclair again in the semifinals, and it was up till halftime. It was a real tight game, and they kicked off, and Tom Deary took it 100 yards down the field for a touchdown, and again we pulled away after that. So 2 special teams plays here on this field, but it was a great stadium. The stadium set over here, it was a nice big stadium, and on this side visitor stands. As you can see, as you look around, it's enclosed, and it was basically enclosed then. So it was a nice place to play. This college, of course, the university decided to move the stadium, which they've done. And they have a beautiful stadium now, but that was kind of home to us at that time. Grass was always high here. The school liked, because the stadium sat here, they liked to be able to, as people sat in the stands, they could see the green grass. But we had great speed, and we always felt it was a disadvantage for us to have great speed in the high grass. It just was a killer for us. And I would say every week, can we cut the grass? Can we cut the grass? No, they wanted it green so everybody could see it. So I said we were the only team that had a home field disadvantage with the high grass. It was right about here that this situation happened. That I just come running out on the field. The teams were both out, and the referee comes up to me and says, "Coach, we have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Your horse parade was out there, and they left a big glob of you-know-what out there." And I said, "Oh, my." I said, "Well, I looked around to see if I could get somebody to get it up." He said, "We're not going to start the game till you get it." And I'm looking for our AD, and he wasn't there. So I didn't know what to do, so I came over here, grabbed 2 towels, ran out here to the middle of the field, scooped it up. I'm really PO'd at this point, and I'm coming back to the sideline, and I finally throw it down, and the kids are going, trying to keep from laughing at me. I was so upset. I finally grabbed another towel and wiped my hands off. The good news is we won the game, and that was the important thing. We got the win. But after the game was over, one of the fathers came down to me and said, "Coach," he said, he's a Pennsylvania Dutchman. He said, "In my era," he said, it was considered good luck if you had something like that on your hands. I said, "Well, we had the good luck anyway."
Hi, I'm Jerry Irving, class of '84 from Widener. I was recruited by Coach Manlove and Coach Stinsky out of high school, and I went to Garnet Valley High School, and I kind of led the league in rushing, touchdowns. Actually, did pretty well. Was recruited by a lot of big schools, had a scholarship offer from University of Delaware. And I remember after the All-Star game, Coach Manlove came down, him, Dinsky, and Billy Whiteshoes, and he said, "Listen, I see you have a scholarship. If things don't work out, why don't you give me a call?" So when later that training all that year, and he came back and says, "Well, I'd like to recruit you and your brother to come to Widener." And he goes, if you're that good, you can play. If you think you can play pro ball, you can play anywhere, then I'll make sure. And then he introduced me to the player personnel for the Eagles. Forget his name, Tom, whatever. So, I was talking to Billy, training with him, so I decided to commit to Widener. I remember coming into camp, and the first day of camp, there was about 40 running backs. And, there was guys from South Jersey, all South Jersey, all everything. So we're practicing, and in the first real, standout in camp after the test was, Coach McQuillan came by and goes, "We're going to start the dream drill." So I look around, I'm like, what is this dream drill? And Timmy Kaiser was next to me. He goes, "It's a way to weed out some of these people that we don't need on this team." So basically, you line up in a 4-point stance, and there's a linebacker and the quarterback and an outside, and the guy who's doing the dive takes that linebacker head on. And it's a collision unlike any I was used to at any point in my life. And I remember lining up against a guy named Darryl Parker. He looked like he should have been in jail. He shouldn't have been in college. So I hit this guy, he hits me, and he proceeds to pummel the daylights out of me. But the quarterback pulls it and pitches it, and I stand up and look at him and, "Listen, man, we can do this all day, but, we're just going to have a long time." But eventually they weeded out, and I made the team, and I was doing pretty well. I kind of thought I was better than a lot of guys in front of me, but we had Hal Johnson, Alan Manker, we had Steve Jones. We had a lot of good running backs that were playing that year. And I do remember this Wittenberg game where I was on the sideline, and we had won undefeated that year. Our linemen were unbelievable. The players were unbelievable. And it was 14-14. I believe that was the score, and I couldn't believe that Wittenberg scored on a couple crazy plays. And so the field goal kicker had tried kicking a couple field goals, and he really missed, like 30, 20 yards, nowhere near it. So at the end of the game, they got the ball, and I guess he was on the 40-yard line. He lines up the kick. So Coach Manlove starts talking to us about overtime, and I really wasn't involved, so I'm watching this guy line up the kick. He kicks the ball. I'm looking, I go, "Man, that looks like, it looks pretty good." Sure as heck, like he made it by the skin of his teeth.
The 1977 season, I think, was a very unique season. I came back out of the Army that year and asked Coach Manlove if I could stay on as an assistant coach and just help out as much as I can. And in all honesty, if you took outside the defense, I thought the defense was extremely special. Offensively, we had a hodgepodge of offensive linemen working in for the first time. We were a quarterback that by the beginning of the season got dumped into the position. And if any team was unlikely not to win the championship, it probably would have been that team. But talking about everybody coming together, led by one man, Coach Manlove. That team, after the Fordham lost the second game of the season, just went on one victory after another. Some close, some were not so close. We ventured to Central Iowa, and They were undefeated. They were predicted to win. I believe we beat them 17-0 that game. And it wasn't really much of a game. It was pretty much dominated. Defense shut them down. Offense did what they had to do. The interesting thing about that, they had a banquet the night before, and not all the coaches could go. And Coach Manlove came up and said, "Sal, I want you to go." I said, "No, I can't. As much as I would like to, you're the head coach. You have to be there." And we had a long discussion, but I just didn't feel like that wasn't a place. But that was the type of man that he was. He would put himself second to everybody else. We came back the following game against Albany, and that was really a toss-up. It was after Thanksgiving. It was a chilly day, a wet day, and we held through that day. The Wabash game was seesaw. They were a very good football team. It was hot that day. It was taxing everybody, and finally, in the end, the kids pulled through. But it was the guidance of Coach Manlove more than anything that pulled the kids through. And I spent over 40-some years coaching football in Delaware County. Still involved a little bit, not as much as I used to. But he kind of taught me the temperament that, you can get upset with some player's mistake, but never make it a personal. And that's always something that stuck with me. He took somebody that nobody knew about and stayed with him for 4 years. And he was a great man. A great man. I owe a lot to him.
My name is Dan Dougherty. I was a freshman on the 1981 National Championship team. My freshman year, August 1980, I come in, or 1981, I come in and introduced to the team and, of course, the coaching staff, and very impressive resume that Bill Manlove had accumulated over the years. I think it was like a 92% win rate. He was up there with the Bo Schembechlers, Paul Bear Bryant of the world, and I say, hey, I'm in the right place. And just his command of a system that has been Widener football program is something to be. It's very impressive.
One of the things that Bill Manlove was very innovative was kicking off first to start the game, whether you won the coin toss or not. Being a kickoff specialist, I was always ready to kick off, which I loved so much that at the Stag Bowl and other games, we would actually kick the ball high inside the 5, because I had 10 guys that were like stallions ready to run down there and hit guys around the 14 or 15 yard line, 3 and out rather, excuse me, and we get the ball around midfield and we'd run in there and basically get a 7-0 lead. So Bill's foresight looking into the game and how it was done well before what everybody is doing now 40 years later. Watch an NFL game and you'll see that everyone now kicks off college or NFL. To me, that's Bill Manlove.
Going into my sophomore year, I was working out pretty hard on the Widener campus. Me, Billy Whiteshoes, Tom Deary, Tom Kincaid, there was a bunch of us. Marvin Spence, who went to Notre Dame, there was a bunch of us working out. And I remember walking into his office. I caught Coach one day walking in his office, and I walk in, and I said, "Can I have a meeting with you?" He said, "Yeah." So we sat down. I said, "Hey, Coach, there's no reason I shouldn't be starting. Like, I'm better than the guys in front of me." I said, "That's why you recruited me. How come I'm not playing?" So he sits back in his chair, he puts his hands up, and goes, "Jerry, you probably are, you are pretty good, but like anything, we're a team here. You're going to have to wait your time." So I remember during the season, I'm practicing, I'm not real happy, and so it was one day I missed a practice. I went to take a test for, I think it was trigonometry class or something. And later that night, I get a knock on the door. Here's my dad. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You missed practice." I'm like, "How did you know?" He goes, "Well, Coach called me." I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "I'm a senior. I mean, I'm an adult." Like, he goes, "You better be at practice. You better never miss practice again." I'm like, "All right, Dad." Because my dad was like no joke. So the next day I walk down, Coach goes, "See how?" He goes, "I see you at practice." I go, yeah, I'm here. I go, I see you made a phone call. He goes, Jerry, I got 3 things I believe in. First thing is God. The second thing is family. The third thing is football. He goes, I pray you don't miss another practice. I might have to call your father, so you better be here every day. And I go, Coach, yep, you're right. I will be.
Good morning, Fred Dorman, women's softball coach, 23 years men's soccer coach, wrestling coach, 1 year of men's tennis here, all thanks to this gentleman standing next to me. I'm so appreciative. Hired here as the men's soccer coach in 1980. I was standing in the hallway. Coach Manlove decided I would be the perfect women's softball coach. I never looked back. All my thanks to Coach Manlove for having hired me, looked after me, taken care of me. So appreciative. Best man ever. Thanks.
you.
Okay, Mike Gorman, class of 75, and one of the things that I've always said about Coach, and he still has the name of Coach in my world, he didn't just develop ball players, he changed lives, and I was just one of those exhibits. He had a knack of making sure when he recruited that he gave you a card and a phone number, so if things didn't work out wherever you went, give him a call and there might be a place for you on his next team. And that was really how I ended up here at Widener from a previous interaction with him. And he did make a difference in my life. He gave me a chance to play ball again and got me my first job as a coach and a teacher at Chester High School. And the rest has just been history from then. And the man stayed with me through the years, followed my career as I followed his. And probably the most significant thing, when my wife died 4 years ago, one of the first phone calls I got was from Coach Manlove. It's the kind of man he was, is.
When you're 17 years old and Bill Manlove sitting in your parents' living room and tells you that he thinks you can play quarterback for him and you'd be an asset to the team. And then when he adds too, that in the springtime, if you want to play baseball, you can do that too. And that pretty much sealed the deal for me.
Actually, I'm one of the few guys that he did not recruit. Coach Manlove didn't even know who I was out of high school. But that's the great man that he was, that I got a fair shot once I came here, showed up at camp, and treated me fair. One thing about Coach Manlove, more than anything, is that, you know, I played with the year when they had Richie Weaver, Billy Whiteshoes. No matter where you were as a player, everybody got treated the same. And I always remember that. I remember my freshman year, I was playing defensive end against Muhlenberg, and I got hooked. And I came off the sideline, and my high school days, when he made a mistake, it got a little loud on the sideline. I came to Coach Manlove, and all I heard was, "Golly gee whiz, Sal, you got to do better than that." And I didn't know how to respond. I was afraid, you know, some other words would have came out, or he would have grabbed my face mask. But in all honesty, that made me want to work harder.
I was coaching here at Del Val. Of course, as a head coach, we were not very good. We could not win despite ourselves. And so it got to be, for the coaches, we tried to keep it as light as we could so we didn't take it too seriously. But we'd get late in the game and that train would come by, we turn to each other and say, be on it or under it, meaning be on it to get out of town or be under it to run over.
So my name's A.J.DUFFY. I was at the University of Michigan, and I found out about the job because my first job out of grad school was at Temple and Wayne Hardin. And some of my athletic training students said, hey, there's this nice Division III job at Widener, give a call. And so I interviewed in late July of 1990, and a week later they offered me the job. So mid-August I came here. Just before I left, I saw Bo Schembeckler there at Schembeckler Hall, and I said, hey, Bo, I'm leaving. And I had known Bo for about 10 years, 6 on staff and 4 as an undergrad. And Bo said, you're going to Widener? He goes, Bill Manlove, he's a hell of a man. And, you know, the friendship that we've developed over the last 30 plus years has been wonderful. The thing I remember is the goodbye, dear. Football's here. Dinners that we would have. And then,
Hello, hun, football's done.
Hello, hun, football's done.
Okay, the playoffs were always very interesting. I can remember one playoff game out in Ohio. We got there, and then of course they have a coaches meeting on the night before the game. We go into the meeting, and this people haven't gotten all together in there. We were kind of early. Finally, they start coming in, and in come the officials. And they walk over to the opposing coach and say, "Coach, how good are you doing? I haven't seen you for a while, blah, blah, blah." And they had a great fairly well. I turned to our other guys and I said, "I think we're in trouble tomorrow."
Yeah, and I was telling your story the other day to somebody who played, I forget, in Illinois. So my coach said, and it made a point. Football is a very easy game, made hard by coaches. And you win it by special teams, defense, and offense. The kicking game is the most important part of it. The percentage of you coming back 90 yards instead of 50 yards makes all the difference in the world. And what I want to say on this, you remember this gentleman is my hero, gave me a second chance to play for him. I was not in shape, I didn't think anything. He took the time and gave me another chance and allowed me to play for this gentleman. And I love him more than life itself. That's why when I called up the hospital, I told him his favorite Jewish linebacker. Somebody's asked me a couple of times, put together a best 22 at Widener. I won't do that because then I would really hurt somebody. But certainly nobody can knock the greats like Billy Johnson, the great running back we had, who was, of course, an all-pro, 13-year player, mostly known as a kick returner, though a very good wide receiver as well, and better known for his dance. And Joe Fields, a 13-year pro, as a center. Joe's an interesting story. He came to us 6 foot, 190 pounds, probably 1-year starter in high school, who we were after a linebacker on the same team, so we took them both because they seemed to want to both come, and we were glad to get him, known as Dad, because his dad had given me a ticket one time when I was going down to coach at Oakcrest, going down to sign my contract at Oakcrest High School. He was a state trooper and stopped me and gave me a ticket. And I just knew he was a great big guy. And so when we got to recruiting Joe, we realized that, hey, that was his dad. And he did grow, Joe. Of course, when he left us, went to the pros, and of course was a great pro player.
I was blessed by Bill because he taught me, keep it simple, stupid. And I think me and Billy Whiteshoes, we get together, we talk all the time about how when we came from Widener where we had 4 plays. And you could make them, 8 by going right or left, and you could make it 16 by putting a pass on the end of it. But that's all we had. So simple, you definitely had to know what you were doing. And the biggest thing is to know what you're doing when you go on a football field. You don't make mental mistakes, and that's what Bill taught. That's how he's lived. Doesn't make mental mistakes. He keeps things simple. And me and Billy Whiteshoes, we talk about him all the time when we get together. When we get together with him, we give him a hard time because he has 16 plays, and we put 20 plays in every day in the pros. You go to training camp, you put 20 plays in. Next day you put 20 plays in. Next day you put them up against 11 defenses. Well, with Bill, it was simple. You're never not going to know what to do because you got too much in the playbook. Simple, precise. That's Bill Manlove.
Yeah, hello. My name's Bob Young. I played defensive back for Bill Manlove from 71 to 74, and then I coached Widener under Bill's leadership from 76 to 87. So I'm so thankful for the people that Bill allowed me to be part of, not just his team as a player and the coaching staff that he brought together, but the players. I'm just so thankful for all the players that I've coached at Widener and just the impact that Bill has had. I guess some of my most memorable moments with Bill, generally speaking, as Bob McQuillan said, he gave us freedom. I think in 11 years that I was coaching, he questioned me on before one game, and it was a national playoff game against West Georgia, and it wasn't a questioning of doubt, but it was just saying, how are we going to handle this, Bob? And he being a defensive back coach himself at Lafayette, and I was aware of that, and the fact that he gave me so much freedom to coach, that's probably the greatest compliment I could give him for that.
I felt that the coaches on defense did such a great job. I did not interfere with them in game planning. They usually told me what they were going to do. If I had an input, I would put it in, but for the most part, they were good. They didn't need me over there for the most part.
So to mention Bill Manlove's name mentions really class coach. But as far as Widener goes, I think the great thing he did was turn it over to us at that time, Bob Young, Bruce Abelev, Ed Dinsky. He made you feel like you were the head coach somehow. That what we did for him, he allowed us to do, and he gave us a lot of leeway on the things that he wanted done. He was a great guy to work for. He's a great gentleman, and whatever honors he's getting now, he really deserves. I'm just honored to be here today and to help share in this program. Thank you very much.
I guess one of the things that in coming to this today and revisiting the 77 season and the 81 season last night on YouTube or whatever, it reminded me just how competitive. Bill was a very competitive guy, even though he was a gentle giant and soft-spoken, very competitive. But it got demonstrated in his goals. Two other little things I like to, I'm mindful regarding Bill that I still do because of him, is his little note cards. He would have a stack of cards, and part of that was make sure you see Bobby Young today, or say something to this person or this player. He had a stack just to remind himself. So, and he continues to impact. I was really struck at Bill's interview that I watched last night, the post-game interview. I don't know if it was the 81 game or the 77 Stag Bowl championship game, but what he said, it was at the end of the game when the interviewer asked him on camera, you know, how do you feel about this win today? And this is the last thing I heard him say on that video last night, on the game video. I just can't thank the Lord enough. We certainly were blessed this season. And that was Bill's final comment.
At Kutztown, if I ever have a situation come up, you know, I need someone to talk to or get some good advice from, Bill would be the first guy I call. He would come in every Sunday morning after church, and we would be in there staff meeting, and we would be breaking down film, grading the game from Saturday, and prepping, you know, to get our game plan ready for our next opponent. And Bill would come in usually around lunchtime or 11:30, whenever church got out, and he would pull out a wad of paper that he had, and he probably would start breaking down or getting information on our opponents weeks in advance. And he would have all their percentages of what they did on first down, what they're doing on third down. Hey, these guys average, you know, 26 points a game, and they're only giving up 17. And I could see some, you know, weaknesses in their special teams. And he would do a lot of that by just reading the stats, you know, and I think that probably was part of his origin as a coach. You know, when he started coaching, film was pretty hard to get at times. So a lot of the study they did was off statistics. And now everyone's into stats. But Bill always had a real strong grasp of the statistics of the team that we were going to play.
I owe my career to my father, there's another coach that I've ran track for, Coach Schau, and Coach Manlove. I mean, and Coach Manlove, I would say, was very, very essential because I left high school and I'm getting ready to start my adult life, and to have a guy in my life at that time, and even now, him and Edna, two of the finest people I've ever met. And like I tell him, he means a lot to me. And he is one that can bring about changes in an individual's life. And I'm sure he had some rough starts when he took on the assignment of changing PMC at that time, even through to Widener. But yet people can always say that he's always been a gentleman. He's always been respectful and mindful of the people that he was around and he was coaching. There's so many stories I can tell you about him, and I'll be here all day. But I do remember that when I went to Widener, he says, I will get the assistance that I need academically, and hopefully the players that they were bringing in would all be a team. And because of him, the class that I was in, the next two classes, changed Widener completely. And that's one reason I think they are and have success today, because of the coaches that came behind him and the standard that he has set, that they know it's something that they have to be held accountable for, and they have to measure up to. And the ball players that he got, he knew how to choose them, believe me. So, Coach Manlove, I just am so glad and delighted that I get a chance to talk about you. Since you always talked about me and our ball club, but it's all because of you is why we were and had the success that we had and became the team that we became.
All the same. Let's go.
Let's go, man.
Let's go.
Good luck, coaches. All right,